Speaking of children and what you're securing for them for the future, we're going to have a conversation right around that this morning. Our guest is in the hot seat. He's been here before, and we love the conversations that we have, pointing us into the right direction in many cases. Robert Kibaara is the Group CEO of the HF Group, and he joins us in the hot seat yet again this morning. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Since the last time?
Very, very well.
Good.
CT, good to see you.
Nice to see you. You're well?
I'm very well.
No, he and I keep meeting in Muranga.
I've closed one eye and looked at both of you. Under good things, of course.
Yes.
So we're back to school, of course, and we are looking at conversations around children and their future, securing your child's future, and just we're going to wrap our heads around that a little bit. But before we do that, CT, as you know, aside from Muranga, has also gone to Algeria.
Oh, interesting.
And I think they're called I think their football team is called the Desert Foxes.
Something of that sort.
Something like
yes.
that. Or is it
Yes.
the Tunisians who are the foxes?
I'm not
Anyway,
certain. I'm not certain.
CT has a proverb from Algeria, the People's Republic of Algeria, and he's going to share that with us today.
People's Democratic Republic.
Oh, it is democratic. I forgot. I'm sorry.
People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Yes.
So he's going to share that proverb with you, and we'd like your interpretation of the same.
Okay.
Speak kindly or refrain from talking.
Speak kindly or
Yes.
refrain from talking.
Yes.
I think it means that if you have to say something unkind,
Yes.
then just shut up.
Yep. If you have nothing positive to
If
say.
you have nothing positive to say, shut up. Shut up.
I like the sound of that word this morning because it's just very clear this morning. You know, really, if it's not going to build or make somebody feel good, then shut
If it's
up.
not going to add value, just keep quiet.
Kana maoni yako.
Yeah.
Sawa kabisa.
Sawa kabisa. All right, so we're looking into treasuring your child's future by instilling financial wisdom. We're going to reference this man CT again, because for many conversations that we have around things that you can do in the future, he will often ask, do we have programs whereby the young people in schools where they're learning everything else about life, whether it is mathematics, that's a totally different story for another day, or whether they're learning other subjects, they're learning everything at that time. But this one thing whereby we're saying it's very important for you to get some insights and knowledge about, we seem to never ever talk about it until they've either landed themselves in debt, they've, or done something later on in life and they say, oh, by the way, let me teach you some financial inclusion when you've already made the mistake. So he often says that's ripe ground for them to be able to start to learn some of these things. And it would appear as though you're in the same, where you think that, okay, let's start talking to these children. Let's start bringing children up in this whole idea of financial wisdom. Before we go into the how, maybe you can give us a little bit more insight into the why it's important.
So it's quite important to teach children about money. I know that many people who are listening to us now are actually either going to work, but they are going to look for money. Yeah, and we do that all our lives. From the time from the time you start working until the last days of life, we look for money and actually use money. But the one thing that we are never taught in schools or anywhere is about money. And in African cultures, talking about money is almost taboo. Families, people don't talk about money. I think the most people talk about money is when the mzee or the person saying, I don't have it.
It's when you don't have it.
I don't have it, yeah. But it's absolutely important. And as you say, people blunder through life for them to then understand how money works. And so that's very important that people get to learn about very early on in life about money. And also not just about money, but healthy habits around money. Healthy habits around money. Because money is brutally honest. Money will, once you have the money and you don't use it in certain ways, it goes irrevocably. It just goes, and the consequences are immediate. So, it's absolutely important that we teach our children, especially at an early age, how money works, developing healthy habits. There is this experiment that was done by Stanford University sometime, where children, a group of children, 4 to 6 years of age, were put in a place, and they were given marshmallow. and they were given, and they were asked, they were told, if you do not eat this marshmallow within 15 minutes, I'm going to give you one more. If you eat, you don't get. So obviously some kids really struggled with it, and some just eat it outright. And then there are some who persevered, and 15 minutes later, they were each given one. And then a later study was conducted throughout their lives. And the ones who actually did not eat were found to have been a lot more successful financially. Mm-hmm. They were found to have been, to do very well, to not do substance abuse. They were found, they were generally way more successful than the people who eat. So those habits that enable people to live life, to understand how to delay gratification, actually. To delay gratification, those lessons, if learned early, can actually help people right into the future. So it's important for people to discuss money from an early age. Yeah.
You see, growing up, we had this thing called the piggy bank that people used to go put money in and whatnot. And later in life, you'd find someone during the holidays, what they want to go swimming. Back in the days, there was one hotel in Eldoret, Serico Hotel, where it was the luxurious hotel of the time, where these kids, we could come together and say, because we have saved up for this amount and we're allowed to finally at the end of the year open up the piggy bank, we get this money, kidogo, we go out with our own money, kidogo, we then go deposit in our accounts. And looking back, it is the basic foundation that tells you to put money in for rainy days, or if you want to do something with that money, you have the power to do that.
Yes.
Now, this information to young people, to the kids, what does it do in their later years is the question.
So you see, once you that child learns early. I'll just give an example of my own story. So when I was growing up very early, my father ran a restaurant, a hotel actually, and there were these jukeboxes, huge boxes that I'm sure your city knows a lot about that. And people would put a shilling, a coin, to play music, and when people get a little bit excited, they keep it running. So at the end of the month, we would open the jukebox where the coins go, and I would help my father to count these coins. And that's when I learned early on that 1 shilling on its own is very small.
Yes.
But when they are added together, many of them, it adds up to huge amounts of money. And you take this money to the bank, and we would spend a lot of time counting the money. And early on, it's the same story of the piggy bank, that you put in that one insignificant coin, one by one, and over time it becomes a lot of money. Or you can decide to spend it and then you don't have. So psychologically, when kids actually, it teaches several things. Number one, patience. That you put a coin and another coin and another coin, and eventually it adds up. And then the other thing is just the compounding effect of money. That money actually grows. In fact, when you add time and interest, lessons around time and interest, money actually grows exponentially. Or it is not there at all. So those lessons learned early by children completely changes their view of money, and they are more likely going to be successful financially in their future.
Right.
Yeah. More than the child who has absolutely no view of money. In fact, it's worse now because people don't see the actual cash. As we saw the money, people don't see the actual cash. So you have really the concept of money is very different.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is appropriate for what age? I imagined when it was you start to talk to children about certain other things that they say at a certain age. By the time a child is able to identify who they are, male, female, you start having certain conversations. When do you start having a conversation then about money for a child? And at what stages would you then have different conversations? What's age appropriate?
Okay. So as early as possible. So it can start as early. Like I was just reading the story of Warren Buffett. So he started saving money. He actually started selling sweets at the age of 6. And then he would get some profit. His father was an investment banker. So he taught him about money and saving and investments very early. And the profits he made, he invested, and over time, obviously, his investments grew. So the question about then at what age do you teach about money? So you can actually start at, say, 3. Teach the child how to count money. Actual notes. Just counting. This is 10, this is 20, this is 30. And then also, at an early age, then, involve children in expenditure. Let me give you an example. So you go to a hotel, if you have cash, rather than you paying, let the child pay. And in fact, have them keep the money with them so that when you go to the next place, then they pay. So they will actually see firsthand how money gets depleted.
Right.
How money actually.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea.
How money goes.
My goodness. I should have thought about this a while ago.
Yeah. And then saving, at some point you start having, it could be a piggy bank, just how to save money slowly. Now there are obviously banking apps, there are bank accounts, because we have an account called Treasure Account. That is quite good. So you teach them to save early. And then also, there's something that people ignore, that when people have an overrated sense of money, that is also that's a negative in their life. So also generosity does help. Getting somebody to giving somebody money and having them give it out. Having them give it out actually does help to reduce the sense. People do crazy things for money. People do totally crazy things for money.
Yep.
Money sometimes is overrated. And then as they grow older, then you start now having tasks, linking tasks to reward. Allowances for reward. So somebody does some work, and then they are paid for something they really need. So that they learn the value of that. You actually have to work to get the cash. As they get older, you can then teach them about things like investments, how to invest. I'll just give you an example of something that happened to me and my daughter. So I decided to just give my daughter some money every month. We put it in an account. She has the card. She has the card, and I told her, if you need to spend some money for small things, lunch and something, you can spend it, but this money we are working on a certain project. So, but I could see the account. And so for 6 months, the money actually grew. The money grew well. And then after 6 months, I started seeing expenditure. The card being swiped, and I could see this, I can see this is a shoe shop, she's obviously spent on a meal. Most likely she has actually paid for her friends. And the money came down to zero. And I just watched painfully as the money went down to zero.
And you said nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had told her, now we need to do an investment, check the balance, so that then we can do the investment. And he knew there was nothing. So she dilly-dallied for some days. Then eventually she came and told me, actually, there is no money. And then she told me about how the money ended, got finished. And so we then sat down, and I then asked her, all these shoes you bought,
right,
some that you use, some you don't use, the clothes you bought, if you were asked to choose between the money you had and these clothes today and the shoes, what would you prefer? And she said, I would want to have my money back. I would want to have my money back. And then obviously we spent time now taking her through lessons of how money works. Then when works, that a coin spent is gone forever, a coin saved is a coin earned, and lessons about that. Then I said, okay, we are continuing with the journey. With the lessons learned, we will carry on with the journey, we'll continue putting in the money, but now you are wiser. So she goes on now. Now we are actually now getting to the investment phase. Teach her now different investments that we can put in the money. But she is now a lot wiser. She's spending the money. I track and see actually the way she's spending it is a lot wiser. So these things, as they go older, you teach them. Otherwise, then they will make blunders way later in their lives that are way more expensive when they can't afford the blunders and with a lot more money. So I think and then also just having open conversations with people. Also teaching people, with the kids as they grow older, the pitfalls, the gambling, online scams, pyramid schemes, things like that. So those lessons can be taught from very early, just basic accounting, piggy bank, putting money all the way to when people are older and moving to now they are investments. If you do that by the way, for me, my parents did that for me. So I made my mistakes very early in my life. That now, credit cards and all those things, I never really suffered those things because I had already been taught a lot of these things very early in my life.
Okay. So if you do set the path at the beginning, they're very unlikely to sway from it in the future.
Yeah.
So it is a fundamental principle, not just biblical.
And they make the mistakes early. Yeah.
You see, the thing that I hear you saying is you need to allow them to make that mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
Because when you spend the money, there's fun in spending it.
Yeah.
And you can see the value you're getting. And at that point, you value it. When the money is gone, you realize that if I didn't have the money, I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Exactly.
Now I don't have it.
Exactly.
Yes. So whatever I was doing, I now cannot do.
Yeah.
So the issue of how do I ensure that money keeps coming in? Not how do I ensure that my father gives it to me, but how do I ensure that I can be in a position where the money comes in?
Exactly.
Because when it's your own money, then your spending habits become very different.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, when they earn it is very, very different. But you see, what happens is that, especially from where I sit in the banks, I see people who accumulate large amounts of money over their lifetime.
But
they give this money to their children, and within 1, 2, 3 years, it's as if you never worked.
Yeah.
It's gone. In fact, it can even cause the children themselves to die because they've never seen this. There's one guy we gave some money. I think it was like 50 million or something. That money almost killed the guy. The guy had never experienced anything like that. Obviously, had not learned these habits and all that. So it is, and these things we accumulate in our lives. We are going to leave these things here.
yes.
So it's as well that we help our children to understand how money works and how then they can nurture these resources. And it has to start when they are early. And it has to be deliberate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which then takes us to understanding how to spend this money in terms of knowing what you need and what you want.
Yeah.
Because then again, that aspect of conversation was the needs.
Yes.
Food, clothing, shelter. But a child will say, that my father will do, I don't care about it.
Yes.
But how do we have this conversation such that it is enough for them to understand what is important, what they can put aside, and where they can focus on?
Okay. So how I see it is that, you see, the one thing that parents sometimes we do that actually is very damaging is to give children what they want all the time.
That was actually my next question.
It's quite difficult. It's very hard not to.
Yeah.
But actually, we are basically destroying children because they become entitled, they become dependent, they become spoiled brats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. But also learning then needs and wants. I would like to look at it this way.
Yes.
I early on learned about assets and liabilities, and accountants will not agree because this is not really how in accounting it works. But in expenditure, you can spend in an asset or a liability. A liability removes money from your pocket. An asset adds money to your pocket. That's first of all the basic. So if you buy, do impulse shopping for clothes and all those things, they actually remove money from your pocket. Junk food actually removes money from your pocket because despite messing you up, they mess your health and your health bills are more. Chasing gadgets. The latest gadget is these are liabilities.
Yeah.
And then of course the assets. If you buy a book that teaches you a skill, it's an asset. If you're a professional and you buy a tool that helps you to do your work, either a laptop or if you're a surveyor, you buy equipment, those are assets. If you obviously savings, investments, and all those things are assets. So that's the basic level that people need to understand. That if you spend more, especially on liabilities, than you earn, you will become a slave of debt, without any doubt. Yeah, but
But about the discussion around children, as Ndu mentioned, it's a pet subject of mine.
Yeah.
Partly because I was once upon a time a teacher.
Yes.
I taught for a long time. I was even a head teacher. So when you're in that space, there are many things you understand because you're there for a long time.
Yes.
But even from a purely business perspective, that is an excellent marketing strategy because you're actually growing a clientele from a very, very, very early age.
Yes.
And if they associate you with that learning, guess what? When they're in a position to actually deposit or open accounts, they'll come to you.
Exactly.
Because it's you they identify with. Now, that is children. But there is a group who never learned how to manage money from a very early age.
Yes.
I'm talking about people in my age bracket.
Yeah.
5 to 10 years younger. Now, older, you're fairly near the grave, but not quite there yet. So, this group at some point come across a lot of money because they're being given dues for having worked for a long time. I've had occasion to witness, long before I got to this age, how that money just vanishes. Whoop!
Yeah.
It's like it was never there.
Yeah.
And the person now is in dire straits and they cannot do what they used to do before and they're stuck and many die. Are they products before people actually retire?
Yeah.
And even when they retire and they have means, because sometimes they think they know and actually they do not. Because somebody who's never done business gets a whole chunk of money, he wants to go into business, you're thinking, my goodness, do you really know what you're doing? It's because someone has told you. Is this a group that is worth talking to and getting them to understand that it is never too late to start changing what you did and to think of new ideas?
Absolutely. So you asked whether they are products, and the truth is that they are actually products. Not even just products. Our bank is called HFC, so we have advisors, trained advisors. What people do is that once they get this lump sum money, especially towards retirement, they first of all, especially men, they will disappear for a while. And then they'll come back when the money is finished. But I would advise people way before retirement, I think it's just good to get professional advice. Just come to us. We have advisors, we have products, we have even just wealth management solutions that we can help you to actually be able to create wealth from the money you have that can help you to invest. And it's not just savings accounts in the banks because we have, but we can actually genuinely advise you that this is how best you can be able to utilize this money to help you for the rest of your life.
Indeed.
Yeah, that whole compounding effect of money. If they are younger children, parents want to do to save for children, we have got an account called Tracy account. We have another one called Target Save that can help people walk the journey with their children, and they can see from the banking app. You can actually see the journey that you've gone
on it.
So what I urge people to do, actually seek professional advice. Banks like us, especially us, we exist not just to make money, but we advise people on these things. We advise people on these things, whether you put the money with us or not, because we understand that these things are never really taught. But we have gone to school to understand how money works, and we can actually support people with that financial knowledge. But advice is, first of all, the most important.
Right.
And then from there, you deploy the cash. And then we also... I think also when people get money, get excited. You have these great plans before you get the money, and then once the money lands, it's so sometimes it's just good to calm down and seek advice rather than just investing in what you have had another person has done. You set up a bar and
first of all, you change the car you're driving.
You change the car you're driving. That's a liability, as I said earlier.
All right.
Yeah.
We're having a conversation this morning with Robert Kibaara, who's the Group CEO, HF Group, and we're talking about, treasure your child's future by instilling financial wisdom. So we talk about, and it's a hard thing, whether you have, a shilling that you will give your child or 100,000 shillings that you give your child, you want to do that. And you said, okay, well, don't give them everything they want because that doesn't help. But then there are the issues of, okay, well, in order to have something that this child can save in the future, Robert, they have to get the money somehow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you put them to work at home for them to do chores and you give them something? Does that not take away from training? Do you give your children an allowance? How do you do that? Because then from there they can learn, well, what exactly do you do?
Yeah. So, I think children need to learn about that money actually is earned, because at some point in their lives they'll have to earn the money themselves. And they also start linking that there is some effort to reward. So yeah, I actually think that it's important to just give children allowances, but allowances should be linked to some sort of work or tasks that they have done, or at least an objective. So I think it's very important to do that. So yeah.
We live in a very interesting time right now, because back in the days you had that physical cash. Piggy bank, at the end of the day, I will open that and I will get the money. You would go to that, you say to the Cherokee box. You open it, you'll get money. But here is a time when most of the cash is transacted digitally. It's M-Pesa, send it here and there. But then we also live at a time when we have a lot of gambling that is going on. We have the FX traders, who are very many in these countries as you speak right now. So how do we train children around this new medium of transaction that does exist?
So as I said earlier, when we were growing up, we were dealing in cash. Cash money. So you'd go to a shop and you'd use the money, and the money would get finished and you watch it go. Now we are in the world of tapping, swiping, clicking, subscriptions,
and wiring.
Wiring, also some sort of gambling.
Yes.
So it's very, very, very important that parents have discussions with children. First of all, to understand how these things work. That when you are swiping a card, there is actually money that has left an account. There was money that has been worked for.
Yeah.
It is your money, that has been that has left an account. When you are swiping a credit card, that there is actually a debt that has
that has accrued. Yeah.
that has accrued, and what that means. So these things, how do they work at the back? That's absolutely important. But also silent expenditure. Like the way you can do a subscription, it just removes your money, over time. Scams that happen. And in this digital world, it's a lot more sophisticated. It's silent. You can't see it.
Yeah.
So having those conversations early with children, in a deliberate way and in a step-by-step way, is absolutely important. And you'll be surprised that a lot of people, especially the young people, don't know these things at all. They don't. They don't know these things. They don't know actually that once you swipe a card, what does it mean? That actually money has been removed from your account and you had actually went to work to raise that money. Those conversations.
Then again, there is the other side that we could also have conversations around the silent investment, money market fund.
Yes, the positive side, exactly. Yes. Yeah, using digital platforms. So, but also, there is a question earlier that Ndu was talking about how giving allowances. But it's also good to, when you are linking reward, you could also link with the digital type rewards. Yeah, like kids use games these days, so they work, and then they get some allowance, and they can use that, say that for some games. But also teaching them also saving digitally. There are banking apps that are able to do that. There are digital tools that people can use for budgeting, involving them in budgeting, so that they can be able to understand really how money works. Like, for instance, if you're going on a holiday, it's good to sit down with your child and say, okay, tickets will cost this will cost this, you're going to spend this. And during the holiday, follow the budget. And if they are asking for something that is not on the budget, you tell them, okay, this we did with you, this is outside the budget. So they can actually start getting to see.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. We draw a budget and then we say, okay, we have gone, so this is the budget we are going to stick. We are going to count the money that we are going to spend all the way. And they can actually see how decisions to do one thing or another affect. Eventually, you can have planned to spend X amount, but it can double if you don't follow. Then they start learning these things very early.
Make it practical,
but linked to reward. But the reward also has to be so the tasks or the objective needs to be reachable. Otherwise, also children, what happens? They give up. They give up on something and say, that one. But also, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy a child something that they haven't worked for, obviously. Yeah. Because also you're a parent. Those lessons, I think, are absolutely important and very early in life. Yeah.
So, I want to go back to something that you had mentioned, whereby you don't give children everything they want, versus at least make sure that they have what they need, but you don't give them everything they want. But we operate in this world where there are expectations. There's a lot of peer pressure, isn't there? So how do you then make you draw the line between this thing that they need to have to understand the world in which they live in versus the thing that they want, and then get them to the place whereby they could be spoiled? And it could be harmless, isn't it? Going out and having a meal with your friends or something like that wouldn't be harmless. We can't say that you can do it every time you want to. So how do you draw those lines?
I think just a basic question as, do we need this or do you just want it? 1 month from now or 2 weeks from now, will you actually need it? Will you actually use it? And this money that we are going to spend, should we spend it on this, or are there other things, better things that we can actually spend? So it is not that you are going to always buy the things that you need. There will be some wants that people buy. But actually children understanding the difference. And it's just those questions. So you want this, okay, if it wasn't this, that you are probably not going to use, what else can we be able to do? And you have a conversation, and you'll find that they actually over time start to understand and differentiate between needs and wants, and you can be able to help them to beat either peer pressure or impulse buying, or those negative financial habits that build up and eventually become a monster. And then also, if the purchase is going to lead to a debt, then understanding what that means. That actually now we'll have to start working to do that. So that conversation about needs and wants is important. But the best thing to do is not to say, no, we can't. No. Is to just sit down. What I've seen with these young people, I have them in my house. They are actually very receptive to conversations. As we just used to be quarreled,
Oh no, you're told this is what you're going to
do. But these young people today, they actually very receptive to conversations. Explain to me, tell me about it.
So we would actually then be doing them a disservice by not involving them in this process.
In these conversations, they want to. They actually want to have a conversation and understand and debate and then agree. And you'll find that they'll own that decision that has been made from a conversation than the one you just said, no, I don't want to hear.
So there's a tricky part of this, isn't there, Robert, that there are very many, a young person today who is not in a position to receive anything, whether it is a shilling or 100. Right? Because of, economic situations, parents are struggling to put meals on the table, and for you to get something that you can call your own or that you can even start to save is hard. We have also seen that there are individuals who later on in life have come from a very, poor background, who've made it later on in life and then go into a crisis when it comes to handling money that they could make from their hard work. What are some safeguards that you can put in place, or what are some things you can teach anyway? Because how do I teach you about money if you don't have any of it at that point to essentially practice with?
I think also just teaching entrepreneurship and just how to start making small amounts of money early. I'll just give you a story that happened to me. So one time, when I was in school, I used to sell things. In high school, it was illegal. I don't encourage anybody to do that, but it happened. So I used to sell some stuff, in school, and I was kicked out of school because of that. I was sent away to go and come back with my parents, with my father, and the role of barbed wire. You know that story. And so my father asked me, so what have you been selling? And I told him I was actually selling mandazi in school. And then he told me, so the context is that he had never gone to school. He had learned math and English early on in his life, but not gone to a formal school
to learn those things.
So he asked me what kind of school is that stops you from doing entrepreneurship. And that's what you're going to do once you leave that school. That's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So, and he said, he told me something that is very important. He told me, don't stop. So, of course, I couldn't go back with him to school because he's going to mess me up. So I hired somebody. I hired a guy to go and say he's my uncle. To go and say that he's my uncle. And so my mother couldn't make it to come because my father was going to mess me up because he couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be a small entrepreneur. And the school is telling me you can't. Yeah, what kind of school is that?
I want to know, how much did you pay this guy?
So,
how did you get the barbed wire?
So you know the fellow. So first of all, I had actually a lot of money. I was making money. Yeah, I was making a lot of money. So when we got to school, this guy actually agreed that I get punished. So I had given him a deposit. So I declined to pay the balance.
Because it didn't work.
Because he didn't defend me. So I just took the punishment, and I actually did not stop. Yeah. So it's possible to learn things early. I talked about the story of the fact that you have found yourself in a certain station in life doesn't mean that you are destined there. You can do small things. There are so many needs in the world. I mean, looking around, I see people with needs. If I was not working with HF today, I would be selling something.
Could have been a chef.
Yeah, I would be selling something out here. Let me tell you, the following day, I would actually just selling something. Because, I mean, that's not the end of life. So I think teaching children these things early, one time there was something at my daughter's school, a big event. And then she told me, actually, there's an event. And I told her, why are you not participating? She told me, no, I want to make cupcakes and sell. At school.
At the event.
At school, yeah. At the event, but she got permission to do that with a group of students. And they made, I think, 30,000 profit from a single event at school.
From cupcakes?
Yeah, from cupcakes and things like that.
I need to think about these cupcakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a period of time. So yeah, there's so much need in the world that you just identify what you can give people.
Okay.
So I don't believe that anybody is confined in a particular station in life, because unless they would have to allow themselves to. There's so much need in the world.
So Robert, I wanna stick on this matter just a little bit, and I'm gonna draw on it from. So I've been telling these guys about some things that I've been watching. So most recently, one thing that I've been watching is what we see today as reformed people who are reformed from a life of crime.
Yes.
Right? Now, getting into this life of crime, what they wanted to do was get money to spend.
Yes.
And of the 17 that I've watched in the last couple of days, every single one of them started off when they came home as children, and it started 9, 10, 11 years old. When they came home and there was a need, not a want, there was a need that was not provided. It couldn't be provided.
Yeah.
And most times in a single parent family where mom or dad would say, you know what, Atuna, we don't have. And then it became pressure, and then they would go back into those circles, and somebody says, there is a way we can get you this. And they started a life of crime as early as 10 years old. And they tell this story 10 years later. But this is where it starts. Yeah. So there's that need that is there that is unmet. Many would say it's not justifiable to go into crime, but the need is very real. In those situations, which, by the way, you would be surprised are so many. How do you start at that age where you can't provide for this child, but at the same time, we are seeing the danger of the circles that they could get into later? And it is money based. It is money. It's not, it's money. There's a need that is unmet. How do we do that for later?
There's a very strong correlation between crime or some kind of crime and poverty, and actually lack. If you go to some places, you'll actually find, I've seen places where you leave your shoes outside and they are stolen. Just shoes. So you are right, actually. The poverty does drive people to do certain things. But I also think that parents have a responsibility to have conversations early in life, early with their children, because also getting into crime solves a problem by creating a bigger problem.
A bigger problem.
Yeah, it solves a problem by creating. You'll get that immediate money, but you could be shot or jailed or
as
anything
is often
like
the
that.
case, yes.
Yeah, and it happens a lot. So having these conversations early, I think it does help, and the parents themselves just also understanding that they need to have conversations. You know, and children don't forget these things.
No.
Yeah. You know, I was told by my father, to survive in this world, you need very little. You never have to steal. To survive in this world, you need very, very little. If you want a lot of luxury, maybe you need a lot. But just to survive in the world, you need very little. You never have to steal. Those words have stuck with me today. And I got to learn very early in my life that there is no need, that crime doesn't help. It doesn't matter how much problem you're going through. So I think those conversations very early with children does help. But you are right, actually, that they are, in the absence of these conversations and teachings and all that, there will be a child who will say, this thing, I can solve it. And how to solve it is through crime.
Yeah.
And all these lessons, things we are talking about here may not hold because they actually no money to even have conversations about.
Actually, if you think of a situation where someone doesn't have money, but like everybody else, they have needs, that is the perfect ecosystem for them to understand how to make money without necessarily going into crime.
Yeah.
Because as you say, every environment, if you think and understand, lends itself to some business.
Yeah.
Every. Whether it's a workplace, whether it is school, whether it's even university. I know this because I used to take pictures when I was in university.
Yeah. And you made some money.
I made a lot of money. I used to take pictures. And because I observed people liked having the pictures taken, understood how much was being charged. And in my walks into town, in my free time, I'd just walk through town so that I understand Nairobi, because I didn't live in Nairobi. At that point in time, my parents lived in Mombasa. So the point is, I discovered places where you could buy films at some enormous discount, the processing, enormous discount. I realized that I could charge less than everybody else whom I saw then, probably give more value. I'm simply saying the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
And I knew my father had a camera he never used. Well, he used it occasionally when we were on holiday. So I borrowed it. I'm simply saying that I know that the money I made from that particular aspect of photography, our salaries came when you were first employed by government after 3 months or even more. I did not need money.
You already had money.
I had money, and money was saved in the post office. And I was at Kenyatta, so I would go to Ruiru to go and bank my money every Friday. All I'm saying is, there are people who have stories of how they started business, and it abounds. There are very many such stories, and if you look back, the influence was what they saw.
Yeah.
Maybe you had a grandfather who did business, you had a grandmother who did business. You're just taking it in. And then you saw what other people were doing. You're taking it. At that point, you don't realize you're taking it in, but that's exactly what you're doing. And so the opportunity, I wasn't the only one who was in university. There were many other people. The opportunity has been staring at us all that time. But somehow. But let me ask this question. Because, I mean, you've said that, and you took my mind back to my college days, and I realized, my goodness, it was a long time ago. Why I asked about people who are younger than I and those who are older is for a simple reason. This issue of what children see. I am at that phase where we are grandfathers. And then there are grandchildren who have parents. If the grandfather doesn't know, it is very difficult to impart this knowledge.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. That is very true.
And yet you may spend time with those grandchildren, perhaps sometimes more quality time than even their own parents.
Yeah.
And even these parents who are your children, you may be in a position to actually advise them if you know. And there's, having made mistakes when you're younger, when you're older, you'll be more accepting. You especially if you've lost money.
Yeah.
Yes, because usually you will have some money and then you make some wrong decisions. In economic terms, it's called the tycoon's big mistake. Because you actually think
to haunt them all their lives.
It does. It's actually traumatic.
Yeah.
Because you actually can't believe that you had this money and now you have none. It's difficult. It is because of this connection that I was asking. Because our discussion today is about children. But children live in an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And they have all these people.
Yeah.
They can teach these people, but it is useful if these people also have knowledge. I am of the school of thought, given that I was a teacher, there's no point in your life when you stop learning. And if you think you stop learning, then probably that's the biggest mistake you'll ever make.
Robert, what would be some morsels that you would send us away with in the last few seconds of this conversation?
Okay, so first of all, that it's important that we take that responsibility to just teach our children, to just teach as much as you know, just like what so you can't teach what you don't know, but as much as you know, deliberately. And it's okay to talk about money. It is fine to talk about money. We use money all the time, and so it's okay to have conversations with our children, about money. But also, there are institutions like us. Our bank is called HFC, that has advisors who can have conversations with you about how to save for the future of your child, or even just investments like what CT was talking about. And that's why shows like this are important. If you come to us in our branches or call us, we will just have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
We have a product called Treasure Account for children. We have Target Save. We have got investment products. We have property products. But the most importantly, we have advisors.
Okay.
That's what I can say, and we invite you to come.
Fantastic. Always great to have you here. And this
Thank
was
you.
a very apt conversation to have, and a good one that we could. So thank you for always doing that. And the work that you do at HF Group, of course, cannot go unnoticed. Robert Kibaara is the Group CEO of HF Group, has been our guest this hour, and great morsels to go away with this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.